Hi, my name is Sky, and I have a request, I guess you could say. If there's any company out there that is interested in biofuels, doing research, or even potentially seeing like interesting way to take the technology for biofuels, I think I got some ideas for you.
So let's go real quick again. What are biofuels? It's you grow a plant in the ground. All it needs is sunlight, maybe a little bit of water. Plant grows. You harvest it. You put it through a process that surprisingly is very healthy. So it doesn't pollute the atmosphere. And then bam, you turn around and sell that fuel, make some money. So real simple thing, right? Well, where I live, off to the west, we got these mountains, and to the west of those is San Diego. But so out of the mountains, we get this air, which certain times of the year will have enough moisture in it, and as a result, you get certain kinds of plant life that occur. So normally you'll see cactus, and then some tumbleweeds, and then these weird trees, which they look pretty barren and dry most of the times of the year, but whenever spring comes around, especially if it rains, these trees will just become covered in little leaves. And so essentially, these two forms of plant life um, that really only become green at one point or one part of the year, they're moisture captures. They just take whatever moisture is floating through the air and have that collect at their soil and soak into their roots. And then you have the cactus, which do the same, but they're a lot smaller and less. It's it's not exactly what I'm talking about. For biofuels. And the interesting thing is that at one point, right around Dunway Road, there are it's a layer of trees that act as a windbreak. And these are big, just gnarly, weird-looking trees that have real thin leaves, and they're just kind of ugly-looking trees, but they do manage to do their the trick of stopping wind and just anything else right at the foot of the trees. They also have a pretty good root system, so they're able to take care of themselves because they just soak whatever water they can out of the nearby fields. But even then, they're starting to struggle. So, kind of some of the different ideas that they're using with biofuels is, um, I remember hearing like quickgrass or switchgrass, and to me it seems that's just like one of the more obvious choices, because with like any sort of thing that's a grass like wheat, um, or oats or alfalfa, essentially the stuff's just growing straight up. Whereas if you're using stuff like corn, well, you're taking up more space just to grow one thing. And my dad was saying that it's the corn stalk or the stalk of or the basically the plant matter of the corn stalk, not the actual corn husks, corn cobs themselves that they're harvesting. So that's interesting. Um, and I'm thinking that for what I'm talking about, because the other thing is that I'm thinking about some dry land on the west side of the Imperial County, and it's basically right where the desert ends and where the fields begin. It's also you'll notice just a very obvious drop down a couple feet on these fields. And the thing is, these fields have returned to uh, natural desert plant life, so they have uh, tumbleweeds, growing and developing in the landscape. So it's reverting right back to the natural landscape, if there's no water. So I'm kind of curious if you can develop some sort of plant that could possibly take advantage of the desert, nature. I'll explain a little bit more of that in a moment. So what I'm asking, or what I'm thinking, is that two sorts of products or two sorts of plants you want to try to get out of this, project. Because right here in the Imperial Valley, we have the Imperial Valley College and a extension campus for San Diego State University. So we have, the means to, or the basics, for any firm else to come in and do some research. Also, agriculture is our number one thing, so it's not going to be a problem, getting people up to speed on how to grow plants. So essentially, we're looking for two products out of this whole thing. The first product is whatever you can basically grow with the least amount of space, that returns the most amount of product and requires the least amount of water. And if possible, also requires the least amount of chemical processing to reach the end product. So, and if it's just possible, just try to figure out a plant that's like this. The second variety to try to go for a biofuel source would be a plant that would possibly exhibit some of the natures of the desert plant life and just being a moisture capture plant, but in more particular, a plant that you just need to water it once or twice, a couple times when you first plant it to get the sprout growing, but afterwards it can basically take care of itself because of the nature of the leaves and the way it operates. So, all you need is just mist, whatever sort of moisture-laden air blowing along to interact with this plant, and that's how the plant will water itself. Also take into account that whatever you harvest and process, that because I'm thinking about places in Africa that people with simple machinery and tools, they can, with the least amount of resources being brought in, they can create their own fuel source. So I mean, and this is just an idea to help solve the world's fuel problem. But I think that as soon as you develop this first product, this will revolutionize the American market. Now, the other advantage about doing this in the Imperial Valley is that you have an enclosed system. So on top of developing these biofuels, you can also work on creating a system or a fuel system that creates no byproduct because of the greenhouse nature of the Imperial Valley. Any gases expelled tend to stay in here, or anything put in the air is going to stay in the atmosphere. So if some sort of fuels system can be developed that's not going to pollute the atmosphere, that's the other technology you can develop. So I guess a third product, even if that's possible. But so that's just some different ideas I have.